Hi, very warm welcome. Good afternoon, it's Gene from Avstar. Is this what the end looks like? What we're looking at is the inflation chart and, the British government. And it's not, don't worry about it being just, I'm talking about the British government and their inflation rates. We're talking about global inflation right now. And I think you know what I'm talking about if you live in the United States, anywhere in Europe, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and, the southern continent of Africa. If you live in these areas, something has gone terribly wrong. And, we might as well be looking at just any other form of data now that comes from any government around the world. This is what the United Nations enforce governments around the world to roll out. And, it's a stinky lie. This is a rotten, stinky lie. You know it and I know it, and I know you're going to be angry at the end of this video. It's like anything they've lost control of, they manipulate it with lying data sheets like this, what we're looking at. Look, they're saying that the inflation rate of the UK is down to 2%, when it was at almost 12%. That's at one point, going back to late 2022. It never went down. It never went down because I'll tell you why I'm doing this video. I just came back from my parents and I was absolutely appalled because I can't remember when it was. A couple of months ago I brought some chips from the chip shop. We're very fond of our chips in the UK here, but my parents told me they paid £4.50 for one bag of chips. When did chips ever become so expensive? And you know as well as I know, they will never go down. The prices never go down, they always go up. And, they're lying about inflation globally. I think this is what the end looks like. When the governments lie about absolutely everything, and the media that backs up the governments, that's funded by the governments, endorse those lies. It is just a matter of time before the masses in the UK hit the streets. We saw it the other day with the Tommy Robson protest in London, and that was just over one thing. That was just about immigrants coming into the country. It's like an open door policy, and you guys in America know what that feels like because your southern border's wide open at the moment and they are letting in tens of thousands of immigrants. But I'm not here to talk about immigrants. That is just a drop in the ocean. I'm here to talk about the lies that the government are now shelling out in the form of data. They manipulated when it was released by the general public and people that are researching the unusual deaths. And we know what that was caused through. And we know we can't talk about it because we get a ban or a strike. So we can't talk about it, but you know what I'm talking about. These unusual deaths only occurred after 2020. And you know what was rolled out after 2020, don't you? So if we've got a spike from 2020 in unusual deaths above the average, then we know what caused them. But the government have manipulated that data as well to show it's not as bad as what it was originally being shown. Because they weren't aware of it themselves at that time when people like... I forget his name now, he's a doctor on YouTube and he was very popular. Apologies for that. But you know what I'm talking about as well. But, we might as well be looking at the climate data. We could look at the climate charts. I could show you the government refusing to talk about the medieval and the Roman and the Eleusinian warm periods, which were much hotter than what they are today. Yet we are in global warming today because they want to raise money on the back of CO2. And who do they blame for the CO2 going into the atmosphere? Human beings, through burning fossil fuels, when they falsely report on that as well. Because 99% of the carbon that goes into the atmosphere goes from degassing of oceans and land, which is natural. There is no global warming. CO2 is not causing a problem, and the government are lying about everything. Look, that this inflation chart is incorrect. If you live in the UK, I want to ask you, what have you seen go down in price recently? I reckon we're heading for hyperinflation. And I say this not lightly. is this what the end looks like? You know, we have definitely upset the balance of nature in our universe, and it's coming back thick and fast. This is karma. This is what happens when we do not regulate governments. This is exactly what happens. You know, and it's been going on. You know, I don't think this universe is too happy with the human beings on this planet. I've got to be honest. Because in the last 100 years, we've seen wars. The First World War, the Second World War. Then, you know, all the other conflicts in the Gulf. Iraq, now Iran. And then Israel and Palestine. You know, Israel, Lebanon, and all the other regions surrounding it. It's like Israel has kicked a huge bees hive out there. And guess who's bailing them out? Us taxpayers. That's correct. It should annoy you. It should make you furious that, you know, our pensioners are paying £4.50 for a bag of chips. I'll tell you something. You know what? I can see, and I'm not joking here, you just mark these words. This is a trend forecast, right? And I don't usually make trend forecasts. This is a forecast. You're going to see the office crisis become even worse. Tourism is going to be hit next, and it already has been. And that affects airline companies, holiday complexes, you know, and then the renting market is going to be hit really hard because inflation is going to push the rent prices that high that people will say, you know what, I'll sleep in a tent tonight. I will find somewhere safe for me and my family to go, and we will stay in a tent because it will save us $1,500 a month. And we're seeing tent cities spark up everywhere around the world. You know it. I've never seen so many homeless people here in the UK. And I just want to knock on one other thing. You know, the benefits. Here's common sense. There's something that Keir Starmer and Richie Sunak and Boris Johnson never had. And some, you know, like Obama had never had, and Joe Biden never had. If you have such thing as a minimum wage, which is the bare minimum that somebody has to be paid so that they can have a minimal lifestyle, then why are benefits 2/3 less than minimum wage right now? The capital system is about to pop, and inflation is the indicator of that happening. And the fact that this is not contained to one country and that it's global, it means it's not the country's economic system and bad policies that's done it. It's capitalism. I'll say it again, it's capitalism. The system has expired, and it's just yet to be understood by the masses. And when they realise what I'm talking about here, they'll know it's true. They'll have worked it out. You're just being pacified at the moment by your governments with this false data on just about everything now. And there is room to pay people that are on benefits more. You know, if you look at where our GDP money gets spent, you'll find that nearly 1/3 of that is spent on an NHS system that is failed completely. And they ask, you know, for more money to be injected into that system. It is consuming 700 million a year to keep it afloat, and it is probably not 1/5 of the service it used to provide here in the UK. Yet what gets spent on benefits is not even 100 billion. So there is room. You know, it's just, you know, I feel like banging my head up the wall constantly. I can't even believe I'm alive in these days. You know, I was at my parents' house having a lovely Sunday roast dinner today, and I stood in the back doorway just looking up at the clouds thinking, I can't believe how much has changed in 20 years. I just can't believe it. It's not recognisable anymore. The UK is unrecognisable now. And another person that I subscribed to today, I was watching his video, and in America, and I'm sure it's the same case for most of the world countries, there is think tanks that are warning governments that there is about to be a super crisis, and it's very likely caused by the inflation that they cannot get under control. There is no 2% inflation rate in our country. It's over 12%. That chart that you can see in front of you right now never went down. It never went down. It just went, keep on going up and up and up. And they manipulated the chart just like they did everything else. We have such an untrustworthy government. It is criminal. And nobody's getting put away in jail. Yet we, break the speed limit more than a few times and we're off to the jail. But these criminals I'll give you a good, for instance, of a massive abuse of public trust. How dare governments around the world use their taxpayers' money to send to another country so that that country can buy weapons, bombs and kill and murder? How dare they do that to the British and the Americans and the Canadians? How dare they? That money should never be leaving the shores of these countries. It should be only spent within the confinements of that country. I mean, look at it. How much worse can it get? We're being taxed here in the UK at 40%, and then on top of that all the other stealth taxes, and on top of that inflation. You should be furious at the end of this video. You should be like me, absolutely appalled, disgraced and disgusted. It must be what the end looks like, guys. It's not just the climate and nature, it's what we're doing to ourselves. Again, I could have reported on Taiwan floods, China floods, and what was the Philippine floods. Did you see that? Have a look on YouTube. An incredible sight. It's happening way too frequently, and it's getting worse each time. The magnitude of these things are increasing. The magnitude of government corruption is increasing. It's like, we are being targeted by the universe. The universal conscious is upon us. And this must be what the end really does look like. But you know what? It hasn't started to get better yet, has it? So just like the magnetic poles reversing on our planet, it means we haven't reached equilibrium with any of these things. They will continue to enforce car manufacturers to produce electric cars, and as well as I know, that it's not even 4 years before you have to replace your mobile phone battery, is it? So what are you going to do with a car that needs a £20,000 battery after it's got to a certain age? What are you going to do with it? When the energy that it's required to charge up a battery which is poorly functioning at that point will cost twice as much for half the amount of capacity of electricity it will hold. These people that are running our governments are the least likely people that should be running our governments. We need people with common sense and the right credentials. We are truly in the end times. I kid you not. £4.50 for a bag of chips. And all these, different, it's across all the ranges, these data charts. They've all been manipulated. And on top of that, you've got the British media and all the world's media supporting the lies and corruption of the governments. Politicians that have no right in politics. It's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. The level of corruption, the laundering that's taking place. They're not politicians, they're crooks and mafia. They've got everything at their disposal to continue being crooked. They've got a protection of the police forces. They've got the protection of armies. It just doesn't stop, does it? No way is inflation at what this chart's showing, and I think you know that. Give me your comments in the comment section. Tell me your views on what we've talked about in this video. Tell me if it's made you angry, the way things are right now in the world and in your country. Let me know where you're from, in what country you're in. Tell me if there's an inflation problem in your country. Tell me if you live in the UK, you think inflation's 2%. Because chips have never been so dear. And it's one of the most commonest food you could have. And do not, please, I know someone's going to put in that comment section. It's because of the bad weather we had this year and the potatoes didn't grow so well, Gene. Really? What if we closed our dockyards? Can we not import, potatoes from other countries? Or has all the other countries had the same problem? We have got food crisis on the way. I don't know what to say to you guys to protect you, or even start in the line of helping you. Just know that it's going to get worse. And wherever there's corruption, I will say this, nothing ever good comes out of it. I mean, we've just had a general election in the UK. We've replaced Rishi Sunak for Sir Keir Starmer. And Sir Keir Starmer is more conservative than Rishi Sunak. It's like it doesn't make any difference. That's why I didn't bother voting, because it's ridiculous. There is no democracy. We are about to see something that mirrored the last empire collapse. And this must be what it looked like, with the corruption running rife, out of control, and hyperinflation. Well, I will say this, if you agree with me that inflation hasn't gone down like they are saying in the governments, then you must know that when I say this is getting close to what the end looks like, it's true. Guys, I want to thank those over the last week that helped support us with a little bit of funding for the observatory. We will be back in the new month, next month, with the latest position of the magnetic North Pole. And if we can continue getting a little bit more support from our YouTubers, on PayPal, then I'll bring it back to you like I did the last magnetic pole positioning. I want to see you guys helping yourself, that's simple as that. And you know what, if you've got any good ideas for people with regards to all this corruption and inflation that's going on, then please share it in the comments. You might just have the golden idea. Link down there if you want to help support. I say what I usually do, you take care of your loved ones as always. Bye for now.